Welcome to this training video on forgiving step by step. Have you ever been hurt by someone and this situation comes back into your mind from time to time? Maybe it was a friend who didn't keep his promise. Maybe it was your parents not listening to you. Or maybe it was a teacher who treated you unjustly. Probably this comes with feelings like anger or sadness or fear or desperation. Or maybe you can't feel much anymore because of what happened. This video is for you. No matter if it was a small thing or a deep hurt, there is hope. My main motivation of making this video is this. What happened is really sad. It is sad enough that it happened. But if this thing continues to affect and limit the rest of your life, that is even more sad. And it doesn't need to be like that. I have met with many people and I listen to them. From small things to the most dramatic and heartbreaking stories. And I help them to forgive. And I saw again and again how they forgave and God restored them. How they became free from whatever happened. So in this video, we will explain to you how you can become free from wounds of the past. It is based on this worksheet. You find it on the link below the video. And there you can download it, you can print it, you can read along, you can share it, whatever you want. It is completely free and there is no copyright on it. Many people translated it into their languages. You find those translations also by following the link. Here you can see the 32 translations that we currently have. If you speak one of those languages, you can go to the website, download the worksheet and follow along. Now we will go through this worksheet paragraph by paragraph, and friends from different parts from the world will read it, and in between I will add some extra explanations. Let's get started.
We all long for deep and loving relationships, but unfortunately, all of us have experienced hurt and possibly even abuse by others. It is painful and we suffer from it. Just as physical wounds can become infected and fester, wounds in our heart can grow into bitterness if we don't act. Time alone won't heal. In response, we often withdraw ourselves and build up walls as protection. As a result, we don't allow anyone to get close to us, and we become isolated. Alternatively, we react in anger, hold the mistake against the other person, and seek revenge. This leaves our thoughts to be consumed with the hurt the other person caused us. By using these strategies, we try to protect ourselves from further misuse, but in the end, we hurt ourselves even more. Furthermore, if we're hurt, we won't treat others with love. Hurt people hurt people. The only escape from this vicious cycle is forgiveness, which can be very hard if we have experienced significant pain. However, as long as we don't forgive, we stay bound to the person who hurt us and to the past. This is because we can't just forget painful experiences and can only try to repress the memories. But God wants us to be free, free from the bitterness, free from the desire for revenge, and free from the pain of the past.
Let me give you an example. I shared something personal with a friend. But this friend told my secret to others. He gossiped. And when I learned that, it hurt me so much. I really got angry. And later I realized actually I'm also ashamed. I didn't want others to know these details. So the first reaction would be that I start to build up a wall. A wall of mistrust, you know? You can't trust anyone. So I better don't tell anything to anyone. But I try to protect myself from more hurt, but actually I'm hurting myself even more because I start to live behind such a wall and I become isolated. The second reaction is this. That was so bad what he did. He should see how bad it was. He should understand that and he should suffer. I will pay it back to him. I will take revenge. But that way, I'm also not free at all. I'm constantly thinking about what happened and how to pay it back to him. The only way of really becoming free from that hurt is forgiving. That's what we are now look at.
So, what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is choosing to let go of all reproaches and accusations against the other person. I hand him or her into God's hands. Rather than passing judgment myself, I trust God, who is the just judge, and let him decide what will happen to the other person. It also means that I no longer count the sins of the other person against him or hold them over him. In other words, as I am already living with the consequences of his sin and can change the past, I now make peace with this and release the other person from all his debt against me. This is my decision alone. It is completely independent from the other person, whether he or she is present, whether he or she says sorry or not. We are not dependent on the person who hurt us. Though forgiving is good for the other person, first and foremost, I do it for my own good. When we forgive, we become free from negative feelings like fear or bitterness and can become healed and whole again.
Often we wait for the other person to come and say, I'm sorry, do you please forgive me? And if that happens, that's great. That's what we all wish for. But often we sit there and we wait for a week, for a month. Maybe they'll never come and say sorry. And the problem is I am hurting. I am the one who's suffering. Maybe they don't even care at all. So the good thing is I'm not dependent on the other person to come and say I'm sorry. It can be really hard, but it's possible. I can make this decision and I can become free from this hurt. Let me also clarify some misunderstandings about forgiveness. Forgiving does not mean sweeping things under the rug. No, I take it seriously what happens. Forgiveness is not a sign of weakness. No, actually it's a sign of strength. And also forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. Often we try to forget things and we somehow hide them inside. But then maybe I don't think about it for a while, but then someone says something or something happens and there it is again. Because it was not gone, it was only hidden inside. Forgiving means that afterwards I get really free from the pain. In the end, forgetting is not possible, but it's possible that the pain of this memory completely goes away, that I get peace about it. And also forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. Reconciliation essentially means that two people forgive each other and restore their relationship. And if that happens, that's great. The problem is sometimes it's not possible, because if the other person does not want to reconcile, I cannot reconcile because it takes two to reconcile. But forgiveness is always possible. I can always make this decision. It can be hard, but it's possible to forgive and get free. Also, forgiving does not mean that afterwards everything is the same as it was before. Let me tell you a simple story. Let's say I have a friend and he has a nice guitar. And I go to him and ask him, friend, can I please borrow your guitar? And he says, sure, but please take good care of it. It's a nice guitar. So I take his guitar, but next day I return it with scratches on it. But I only say, well, you know, I have small kids at home. That's what happens. And listen, it still sounds the same. How will he feel? He'll probably be really upset. But let's say after I'm gone, he forgives me for what happened. But then next week I come again and ask him, friend, can I borrow your guitar again? So now it's his freedom, it's his guitar, he can give it to me or not. And let's say he forgave me for what I did. But if he's a wise man, he will probably say, no, I'm sorry. I learned that you do not take good care of my guitar. You don't even say, sorry, no, I won't give it to you again. So forgiveness does not mean afterwards it's everything the same as it was before. And this was a simple example. It was just the guitar. It's essentially mainly about money. But we all know that sometimes people use us and play with our feelings and such. So often it is good and necessary and wise to forgive and afterwards set healthy boundaries. Let's now look. How does forgiving actually work? Steps of forgiving.
Sometimes we take shortcuts when we hastily speak out forgiveness, but later realize that there are still remnants of the pain in our hearts. So how can we fully forgive others? The following steps help lead us through the process of forgiving. The first 3 steps we go through carefully, preferably with a helper. Step number 1, what happened? Describe specifically what happened. A common mistake is that we stay general and vague here. Step number 2, what hurt me? How did I feel? Feelings are a vital and important part of who we are. A common mistake here is that we skip this step and just stick to the facts. Step number 3, name the sin. Don't soften wrongs and don't justify. Identify how the other person sinned against me through the things he did or did not do. Common mistake. We justify the other person, but if we don't call it sin, there can't be forgiveness. Now, we go into prayer and bring everything from the first 3 steps to God. Step number 4, bring charges of injustice to God. We go to God the judge and bring charges against the other person who hurt us. We pour out our hearts and tell him all of the main points from the first 3 steps. A common mistake is that we skip this step or we hide our emotions from God. Step number 5, speak out forgiveness. Now we speak out forgiveness. I forgive blank for blank. And make the decision to hand the whole case over into God's hands. A common mistake is we tell God what to do with the other person, which is actually cursing the other person. Or we say we want to forgive. Lord, help me to forgive. But we don't actually make the decision to forgive.
Now we're at the core of forgiving. Let's say the hurt was quite deep. It was this deep. Often we only first see a part of it. We see this, and then we say, well, that's okay. That part may be gone, but this part is still there. Often it happens that we only forgive a part of it. Let's say we forgive like 60%, but there's still 40%. Yeah, because I shared this personal thing with a friend, and he gossiped and made me so angry, but I forgive him. But then later I realized, oh, there was also one more thing to it. He shamed me in front of others. And I also need to forgive that. So our main aim is that we forgive completely, that we look at the whole thing and then forgive the whole thing, and then it's gone and we are free. So these 5 steps help us so that we don't omit something important. So how do these 5 steps look like practically? Let me summarize it. It looks something like that. Step 1. I shared something personal with a friend, and without asking me, he shared it with others and he gossiped. Step 2. I really got angry. And actually then I realized I'm also embarrassed and I'm ashamed. Step 3. It was not right of my friend to tell this personal thing to others, to gossip without asking me. Step 4. I go to God like this. God, I come to you. You're the judge. And I bring you this injustice, what my friend did. You know, I shared something personally and I trusted him. But without asking me, he shared it with others. He gossiped. So it made me so angry, God. And also he shamed me in front of others. And now, when I have poured out my heart, when everything is on the table, I now come to step 5 and I say, okay, God, and all these accusations, I hand them over to you. I hand this whole case into your hands so that you judge. I don't want to judge him anymore. I don't judge him anymore. I let go of all these things. And step 5, I forgive my friend for what he did. For everyone, one or two of these steps can be especially hard. So, what would be the hardest step for you of these 5 steps?
So, what is the hardest step for me in this forgiving process? The hardest step for me is step number 2, to describe how I felt and to describe what hurt me and how it hurt me, and to specifically know how I felt, how it felt like, know my feelings, and put words to it. That's the most hardest step for me.
The hardest step for me is 3. I tend to justify the other person and try to find another perspective. Like, oh, maybe they had a good reason, or they were stressed or tired. And I choose to kind of not look at the sin and justify it or soften it. So 3 is the most difficult for me, for sure.
So for me personally, step 2 is the hardest, because I'm good in analyzing what happened and what was wrong. But if I don't pay attention, I don't look at how it really hurt me about my feelings. But if I don't look at my feelings, then the forgiveness won't be complete.
God is the judge, and we have the right to bring every injustice to him. We can be certain he will bring justice and judge everyone. That's not our job. We have no right to pay back others or to take revenge on them. In the same way as we bring charges to a judge in this world, we bring charges to God. We don't have to be afraid to offend him, but we can be totally honest and show all our feelings. After we finish, we let go of the accusations and put everything into God's hands. We don't continue to judge the other person ourselves, but we leave the judgment to God alone.
Many people have never talked with God like that. And maybe also for you that sounds strange. If I would ask people, well, do you believe that God is a judge? Many would say, yeah, I think so. And if I ask, well, but what does that mean in your life? They're like, I don't know. Maybe when I die, I will be in front of him and he will judge me. Well, that is right, but there is more to it. In this world, you go to a judge to open a case because someone stole your bike. In the same way, we can go to God, the judge, and bring our hurt. And he is the right address for that. Because these accusations, when they are in our heart, they're not healthy if we keep them here. Sometimes we try to share them and tell them others. Well, that's maybe nice for the moment, but they can also not do anything with these accusations. They're still there. The only right address for these accusations is God. He's the judge, and these accusations need to go to him. Because before I thought maybe it's a bit frightening that God is a judge, but now I know, no, it's actually a good thing because he cares. He's the right address, and he cares about all injustice, and he cares about my hurt. Let's now look at some more hints about forgiving.
Using the support of a helper. It's hard to go through this whole process of forgiving alone without overlooking some aspects. So look for someone who can go through these steps together with you and pray with you. Our own sin. When we are hurt, we often unintentionally treat others badly and sin against them. It's important not to ignore these things, but to repent and ask forgiveness. Clarify anything that comes to your mind here as soon as possible. Forgiving myself. Sometimes we're angry at ourselves or blame ourselves for something. God offers a way to forgive us and cleanse us through Jesus Christ. Forgiving myself means taking his offer and applying to myself. Forgiving God. Sometimes we have negative thoughts about God or are even mad at him. God doesn't make mistakes, so in that sense we can't forgive him. But it's important that we let go of our frustrations and negative feelings toward God. Sticking to forgiveness. In case these old feelings come up again, remind yourself that you have chosen to forgive and those feelings will pass. However, it is possible that there are other aspects or deeper layers of hurt that you did not address the first time. We can go through this whole process of forgiving once again so that these areas get healed as well.
I will give some more explanations on these hints, using the support of a helper. Well, the problem is that many people are no good helpers. One typical problem is this: you go to them and you share, this is what I did, and my wife did that, and then I said this to her, and they're like, what? You said that to her? I mean, that is stupid. And you're like, okay, thanks. Because they start to judge you. Or you start to share something, for example, well, my ex-girlfriend, she did this and this and that, and they're like, my ex-girlfriend, she's the same, she did this and this and that, and all the women, they're the same. You're also like, thanks. I did not come to listen to your story. It's not helpful at all for me. A third problem would be, oh, this is what happened to you. That is so bad. I'm so sad for you. This is so bad. I'm so sad for you. Let me give you a hug. Well, don't get me wrong. It's nice to get a hug. But if that's all, that is not helping you to get free from that hurt. A good helper is leading you in a loving way through these steps so that you make these steps and at the end that you forgive and get free from this hurt. If you don't know where to find a good helper, please write us. We're training people to become good helpers in that process. Our own sin. I personally also was hurt by someone quite badly. And I was sitting with my wife at the table we were eating. She was telling something and then she looked at me. Did you listen to me? And I was like, I'm sorry. In my mind there was this guy in the situation. And I realized, wow, I probably will never meet that guy again, but it's still affecting my relationship with my wife. I'm still hurting her even. So I found a friend and he helped me. I forgave the whole thing. And now the situation is not coming into my mind again if I don't want it. And also all the anger is gone, all the embarrassment. Yeah, there was also some anger at myself involved because why did I not see that before? Yeah, things like that, it's all gone. And now I'm free from that. Forgiving myself, that can also be a hard one. For that is important that we first know how God can forgive us. You can look at God's story or write us to learn more because first you need to be sure that God has forgiven you. And when you really know that because you went the way that God provides for us, that He can forgive us, if you did that and know He is forgiving you, then it's usually not that hard to forgive yourself. Because it's like this, if you go this way, God will forgive you and put all these stupid decisions and all your sin into like the deepest ocean. And He says, I will never take it out again. And then it's usually not that hard to say, okay, if God put all these things into the deepest ocean, I will also not take them out again. I will also leave them there and I forgive myself. Forgiving God. Well, you cannot forgive God because He doesn't make mistakes, but often we can be angry at God. Maybe we are not aware of that, but deep in our hearts, there's accusations against Him. God, why did you let this happen? And it's important that we don't ignore that. Instead, we need to be honest. God anyway knows what is in our heart and He knows these accusations. And it's important that we come to Him. He wants us to be honest, to come to Him and encounter His love and to get rid of these accusations. So I can ask God, show me my heart. What accusations do I hold against you? And then I speak them out, and in the end, I give them into His hands, ask Him for forgiveness, for blaming Him, and then I get free from these accusations, and I get free from it. For the last hint, let me tell you an example story. Let's say you're soon finishing with school, and the graduation is coming. So you tell your parents, this and that evening, there's the graduation party and you're invited. And they're like, sure, yeah, your father says, yes, we'll come. And then on that evening, everybody's there, all your friends dressed up. Their parents are there. Who didn't come? Your father. You're so disappointed. But then you realize, well, this sadness is also not helpful. So you decide to go through these steps and you forgive your father for not coming, for not keeping his promise. But after doing that, you realize, oh, actually, he often did that. It's like a pattern. He promised something, he didn't keep to it. When I really needed him, he was not there, he was busy, whatever. So then you need to go through these other situations as well, because you have forgiven him for not coming to your graduation party, but now you need to forgive these other situations as well so that you get free from all of that. Now let's look at ourselves, examining myself.
Take 2 minutes to ask God the following questions and make notes. God, who do I need to forgive? Listen to God and go through your relationships. Your parents, family, relatives, friends, neighbors, colleagues, classmates, teachers, leaders, yourself and God. How was I hurt and by whom? Hints for finding out whether the relationship with a certain person is healthy or still broken in some way. Think about the person. Can you wish him or her all the best with all your heart? Imagine you meet the person on the street. How would you feel? And are you still bearing a grudge? Practice. Which hurts do I want to address first? And who should support me in this? Clarify specifically how you will continue.
These hints help us to identify if there's something I need to forgive. If you cannot wish him or her all the best, that means that you're probably still hurt in some way. Or if you think about a person and immediately there comes anger or sadness or something like that, that means that you're still hurt. Maybe you've forgiven a part of it, but maybe there's still, maybe you've only forgiven 60% and there's still these 40% there left in your heart. So now we'll take a time where you can ask God and think who you should forgive. I will pray now and then you can ask God. God, I thank you that you care about us, that you're interested in us, and that you do not want us to be bound to the past or to hurts we experienced. You want us to be free. You want us to forgive, and you're ready to help us with that. So I pray that you now speak to us. God, who do I need to forgive? Probably someone came into your mind, or it was even several people. Maybe just one thing, maybe it was a whole list of things that happened over a longer period of time. It can be helpful to write these individual things down. Sometimes we had people who wrote 2 sheets of paper with the individual situations they needed to forgive their parents, for example. And now you decide where to start. And then you start going through these steps to forgive. I suggest you start with something small, because the more you practice the forgiving, the easier it gets to forgive. If you get stuck with something, please write us. I pray that God will help you in forgiving and that He will provide all support that you need. Also, if you want to learn more how to become a good helper in that, also write us. Of course, you're invited to share this video or share this worksheet. And now, God bless you.